I've always been a bit of a loner, even when I was a kid. My name's Emma, and I'm good at keeping myself busy. Don't get me wrong, I'm not shy or anything, I just like being alone most of the time. My mom noticed this about me early on. Instead of trying to make me more social, she helped me find something useful to do. She got me into cooking when I was just tall enough to reach the kitchen counter. I loved it right away and learned everything I could. Mom didn't just teach me how to follow recipes, she taught me how to understand food. We'd visit different cafes and restaurants, and she would explain each dish to me. As I got older, my love for food grew even more. I started reading articles by famous food critics and realized food isn't just about how it tastes or feels. It's also about how it looks, the vibe of the place, the whole experience. One day, I told my mom, I want to write about food. She looked at me proudly and said, "Then you'd better learn everything you can about it, kiddo." So that's what I did. I went to a cooking school to learn all about the art of food. After that, I took journalism classes to improve my writing. I wanted to describe food in a way that people could almost taste it just by reading. My first job as a food critic was for a small local paper. I wrote about a tiny Italian restaurant, describing how the homemade pasta melted in my mouth and how the smell of garlic and basil made me feel like I was in Belgium. To my surprise, people really liked it. The editor called me the next day and said, "Kid, you've got talent. Keep going and you'll go far." And just like that, I found my path. I wrote for newspapers and magazines, becoming known for my honest and fun reviews. The big turning point came when I started my own social media pages. Suddenly, I wasn't just writing for newspapers and magazines, I was talking straight to food lovers from all over the world. My number of followers kept growing, and they paid close attention to everything I said about new food trends and hidden gems. One regular Friday evening, I sat at a quiet corner table at the Stockpot, Virginia Beach, a new farm-to-table restaurant I was reviewing. I was taking notes about the atmosphere when I noticed an older couple at the next table. The woman kept glancing at me and whispering to her husband. I gave her a polite smile. I'm used to being noticed now, and went back to my notes. "Excuse me," the woman said warmly, clearly excited. "You're Emma Watson, right? The food critic." I nodded. "That's me. Nice to meet you." "Oh, I'm such a fan," she said. "I follow all your posts. Would you like to join us for dinner?" I paused. Usually, I prefer to eat alone when I'm working, but they seemed so friendly that I decided to say yes. As I sat down, the woman told me her name was Lauren. Her husband was Adam. Then she pointed to a young man I hadn't seen before. "And this is our son, Larry," she said. Larry looked up from his phone and gave me a crooked smile. "Hey," he said. "Nice to meet you." We started talking, and it felt really natural. Lauren and Adam were curious about my recent travels, and Larry added funny comments that actually made me laugh. As the evening went on, I realized I was having a great time, more than I'd expected. Larry was especially easy to talk to. We both liked weird indie movies and silly puns. When it was time to go, Larry looked a little unsure, then said, "Hey, would it be okay if I got your number? You know, in case I ever need restaurant tips or something?" I felt a little nervous flutter in my stomach, and it wasn't from the food. "Sure," I said. I heard myself say, "Sure," for restaurant recommendations. We started texting that same night. At first, it was just about food and places to eat. But soon, we were talking about everything. Our chats became the best part of my day. A month later, Larry asked me out on a real date. I said yes right away. We went to a small, fun little bistro I had been wanting to try. Sitting across from him, I realized how comfortable I felt. There was none of the awkwardness that usually comes with first dates. A year after we met, Larry proposed. It wasn't a big or fancy moment. He knew I didn't like that kind of thing. Instead, he made me dinner, though the steak was a little burnt and the mashed potatoes were lumpy, and he asked me to marry him during dessert. How could I say no? After the wedding, we moved into my apartment. We decided to be smart with our money and opened a joint account for shared bills. I put in more since I earned more, but we both agreed it was fair. Living together showed me new sides of Larry. He had this habit of leaving dirty dishes in the sink and clothes all over the place. His toothpaste cap was never on, and coffee mugs somehow ended up on every table. I held back from saying too much, reminding myself I wasn't perfect either. I told myself, it's just an adjustment. We'll figure it out. And slowly, we did. Larry started helping more with cleaning, and I learned to be a bit more easygoing. It wasn't perfect, but it was our life together. 7 months later, we were getting ready for our first vacation as a couple. At the airport, bags in hand, I felt so excited. I turned to Larry, ready to share the moment, when I noticed him staring at something behind me. I turned around and saw Lauren and Adam walking toward us, smiling wide. They only had small carry-on bags, like they were going on a short trip instead of a full vacation. Surprise, Lauren said, hugging Larry. We couldn't let you two lovebirds have all the fun without us. I felt my stomach sink. This wasn't the plan. I looked at Larry, hoping he'd explain. But he looked away and mumbled, it's kind of a family tradition, we always vacation together. I forced a smile, trying to hide how upset I felt. How nice, I said. I managed to ask, but don't you need more luggage for a week-long trip? Adam waved his hand like it was no big deal. Oh, we'll just buy what we need there. No need to drag around heavy suitcases, right? The first few days of the trip went by fast. I tried to focus on the good things, the beautiful views, the new and interesting food, and how kind the local people were. But as the days passed, I started to notice something that bothered me. Lauren and Adam were spending money like it grew on trees. They shopped a lot, ate at fancy restaurants, and didn't seem to care about the price. One evening, we were sitting in yet another expensive place. I leaned toward Larry and quietly asked, how can your parents afford all this? Aren't they retired? Larry shifted in his seat and looked uncomfortable. They're just good with money, he said, suddenly staring very hard at the menu. I wanted to ask more, but right then, Lauren started telling a long story about her bridge club, so the moment passed. As the trip came to an end, I found myself actually looking forward to going home. The day after we got back, I decided to check our joint bank account. I was curious to see how much we had spent. When I logged in, my eyes went wide. The balance was much lower than I expected. Way lower. Larry, can you come here for a second? I called, my voice tight. I turned the screen so he could see. Care to explain this? Larry's face went pale as he looked at the numbers. I might have used our account to pay for some of Mom and Dad's stuff, he said quietly. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm, even though I was angry. Larry, that was our money. And most of it came from me. You should have talked to me first. I know, he said, reaching for my hand. I'm sorry, Helen.
It won't happen again.
I promise. A month passed, and things slowly went back to normal. Larry kept his promise and didn't touch the joint account without asking me first. I tried to move on from what happened and focused on my work and our life together. Then, one cool autumn evening, Larry came home looking excited. Hey, Helen, Larry said, wrapping his arms around me from behind while I was cutting vegetables in the kitchen. I have an idea. How about we go on a little overnight picnic this weekend? Just the two of us. We'll rent a small motorhome and enjoy the outdoors. What do you think? The idea sounded nice. We spent the next few days getting ready for our mini adventure. I packed a cooler with fancy sandwiches, homemade potato salad, and a bottle of wine. Larry took care of the rest. He rented a small motorhome and planned our route. We got to the campsite by mid-afternoon. It was beautiful, tall pine trees all around and a clear blue lake nearby. Larry parked the motorhome in our spot, and we stepped out to enjoy the fresh air. That's when I saw it. A car I recognized pulled into the spot right next to ours. Lauren and Adam got out, waving excitedly. Surprise, Lauren called. We thought we'd join you on your little getaway. I turned to Larry, hoping he looked as surprised as I felt. But instead, he looked guilty and avoided my eyes. Larry, I said in a calm but serious voice, did you tell them about our trip? Before he could answer, Lauren came over and gave me a big hug. Oh, isn't this fun? A family camping trip. I forced a smile but noticed right away they didn't bring anything. No tent, no food, not even a change of clothes. As the evening went on, it was clear that our romantic weekend had turned into a family event. Lauren and Adam did most of the talking, sharing old camping stories and taking over the conversation. They ate our food and drank our wine, leaving very little for Larry and me. Then bedtime came, and there was another problem. The motorhome was way too small for 4 adults. Larry turned to his mom and said, "You and Dad take the bedroom. Helen and I will sleep in the car." So instead of relaxing in the motorhome, I found myself curled up in the back seat of our car, while Larry snored softly in the front. It was cold and uncomfortable. The next morning, tired and sore, I told Larry we should just go home early. The drive back was tense. We made small talk, but mostly it was quiet and awkward. When we got back to our apartment, Larry's parents cheerfully said goodbye, completely unaware of the stress they had caused. Once Larry's parents left, I turned to him. "We need to talk about this," I said firmly. He nodded, already looking guilty. "I know. I'm sorry, Helen. I should have told you they were coming." "It's not just that," I said with a sigh. "It's about boundaries. Your parents can't keep showing up in our lives uninvited. We need some rules." Larry nodded slowly. "You're right. I'll talk to them." A few days later, I was in the kitchen testing a new recipe when the doorbell rang. I opened the door and, to my surprise, there were Lauren and Adam, smiling brightly like nothing had happened on the trip. "Emma, dear," Lauren said, hugging me quickly as they walked in. "We need your help." I raised an eyebrow. "With what?" "We were wondering," she said, "if you could tell us which restaurants in the city have the best food." I was a bit surprised by the question, but answered politely. "Well, there are quite a few. The German bistro downtown, Le Petit Canard, is amazing. And Sakura Sushi on 7th Avenue has some of the best sushi I've ever had." Lauren's eyes lit up with excitement. "Perfect. We thought we'd check if those restaurants are hosting any events, the kind where we can eat for free." I looked over at Larry, who had just walked into the room. I was hoping he'd support me, but he just shrugged. "Come on, Helen," he said. "You've got to accept my parents as they are. No point trying to change them." I was speechless. Wasn't this crossing a line? Before I could say anything, Lauren and Adam were already thanking me and chatting happily as they left, talking about how they might get free meals. A few days later, I was getting ready to review a fancy new Italian restaurant called Banate. As usual, I shared the details of my upcoming visit on social media so my followers knew when and where to look out for the review. That evening, I arrived at Banate, notebook in hand, ready to try the food and write my thoughts. I had just opened the wine list when I heard a familiar voice. "Well, hello there." I looked up, and there were Lauren and Adam, smiling as they sat down at my table without even asking. My heart sank. Lauren grabbed a menu and said loudly, "I'm Emma's mother-in-law. We're here to enjoy the free meal with her." I felt my face go red with embarrassment. "Lauren," I whispered, "please lower your voice. I'm here to work. You can't just show up like this." But she didn't listen. She raised her voice even more. "Oh, don't be silly, dear. Everyone knows food critics eat for free. Why shouldn't your family get to enjoy that too? We have every right to be here." I could feel everyone around us staring. The head waiter started walking toward our table with a worried look. This was getting out of hand. "Lauren, Adam," I said, trying to stay calm, "this is your last warning. If you don't leave right now, I'll have to call security. You're interrupting my job and making a scene." Lauren's face twisted with anger. She stood up so quickly her chair scraped loudly against the floor. "Well, I never," she said. "Is this how you treat family, Emma?" She grabbed her purse, then turned back to me with a look of disappointment. "You know," she said slowly, "I'm starting to think I made a huge mistake. I'm the one who told Larry to marry you. I followed your Facebook page and thought, there's a girl who can help us enjoy the finer things in life. I thought you'd take us to fancy places, maybe even support us a little. But clearly I was wrong. If this is how you treat family, we don't want to be part of yours." With that, she stormed out of the restaurant. Adam followed behind her. The silence afterward felt heavy. My hands shaking, I picked up my phone and called Larry. He answered on the third ring. "Larry," I said softly, "is it true? Did your mother really tell you to marry me because she thought I'd take care of them?" There was a long pause. Then Larry let out a sigh. "Yes," he admitted. "Mom saw how successful you were and thought, well, you know how she is. She said you'd be perfect, for me, for all of us." It felt like the ground had dropped from beneath me. I hung up the phone and looked at the head waiter, who had been standing nearby. "I'm so sorry for the trouble," I said quietly. "I won't be able to finish my review tonight. Please tell the chef I apologize." I gathered my things and pulled out my phone. I quickly typed a message to my followers, saying I was sorry and that my review of Belenate would be delayed because of an unexpected situation. The drive home felt like a blur. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of everything that had just happened. When I walked into our apartment, Larry was there waiting. He looked worried. "Helen," he began, but I raised my hand to stop him. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked quietly. "Was I just a way for your family to get free meals?" Larry's face fell. He reached for my hand, and this time I let him. "No, Helen. I mean, yes, at first it was my mom's idea. But then I fell in love with you. Not your job, not your success. Just you." I sat down on the couch, feeling suddenly very tired. Larry sat beside me, his eyes full of regret. "I know I messed up," he said. "I should have set boundaries with my parents a long time ago. But I love you, Helen. I want to fix this. Can we try?" I looked at him, really looked at him. And even after everything, I knew I still loved him. As we sat there, holding hands, I felt a small bit of hope. Maybe, just maybe, we could fix things and come out stronger. The next couple of months were calm. Larry worked on setting better boundaries with his parents, and I focused on rebuilding the trust between us. I also poured my energy into my work. Then, something big happened. My cookbook was finally published. It was more successful than I ever dreamed. Big newspapers and magazines gave it great reviews, and it quickly became a bestseller online. One evening, as I was reading yet another glowing review, Larry came home with a smile. "Let's celebrate your success," he said, his eyes full of excitement. "I've planned a trip to that charming city you've always wanted to visit. It has everything you love, great food, history, beautiful nature. And I booked us a room at that cute boutique hotel you always talk about." I smiled, but I had to ask the question that had been on my mind. "It's just us, right? Your parents aren't coming?" Larry looked me in the eyes and said, "I promise, Helen. Just us. No parents. No surprises." The day of our trip came, and we headed to the train station, bags in hand. As we walked toward the platform, my heart sank. There, waving happily, were Lauren and Adam. I turned to Larry, hoping this was just a weird coincidence. But the guilty look on his face told me the truth. "I'm sorry," he said quietly, not looking at me. "I couldn't stop them. Mom found out about the trip, and just like that, something inside me broke. All the promises Larry had made, all the effort from the past few months, it all felt meaningless now." Still, I forced a smile as Lauren and Adam walked over. I noticed they only had one small purse with them. No bags. "Where's your luggage?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer. Lauren waved her hand like it was nothing. "Oh, don't worry about that, dear. You'll take care of everything, won't you? After all, we're celebrating your success." Soon, a voice on the loudspeaker announced it was time to board. We got onto the train, and everyone started settling into their seats. "I'm just going to use the restroom before we leave," I said, picking up my purse with my phone and documents inside. I stepped off the train. The cool air hit my face. I stood still, watching the train doors close, listening to the whistle blow, and then I watched as the train slowly pulled out of the station. My phone buzzed. It was Larry calling. I took a deep breath and answered. "Helen, where are you?" Larry's voice was full of panic. "We're not going in the same direction anymore, Larry," I said, my voice calm, even though I didn't feel that way. "I'm divorcing you." Then I hung up. My hands were shaking as I opened my banking app and removed Larry's access to our joint account. Not even a minute later, my phone rang again. This time it was Lauren. I didn't even bring the phone to my ear. I could already hear her yelling. Insults, demands, even threats. She told me I needed to pay for their trip and compensate them for their emotional stress. When she finally stopped talking, I answered calmly. Lauren, I'm not afraid of your threats. And if you post anything false about me, I won't hesitate to take legal action. Then I blocked her number. I blocked Larry's and Adam's too, just to be safe. I took a deep breath, called a cab, and went home. The weekend passed in a blur, full of both emotion and action. I packed up Larry's things, contacted a lawyer, and started the divorce process. By Sunday morning, I was tired but sure of my decision. Then I heard a key in the lock. My whole body tensed. Larry walked in, looking messy and desperate. Helen, please, he said, moving toward me with open arms. I took a step back and pointed to the suitcases by the door. Your things are packed. It's time for you to leave. Larry's face fell. You don't mean that, he said. I've learned my lesson. I had a big fight with my parents during the trip. I told them I'm done paying for everything.
I'm not even talking to them now.
Please just give me another chance. I shook my head and handed him the divorce papers. It's too late, Larry. This isn't just about your parents. It's about trust, respect, and the kind of life I want. We want different things, and that's okay, but I can't keep doing this. Larry stood there for a moment, silent. Then he nodded slowly, his shoulders slumping. He picked up his bags and walked out, closing the door behind him with a soft click. The weeks that followed were tough, but also freeing. The divorce went smoothly. I had kept good records, and Larry didn't fight it. I focused on my work, finding comfort in cooking and writing. As time passed, I was alone again, but not in a sad way. I found peace in the quiet. I started enjoying the little things again, trying new recipes, curling up with a book, and talking with my followers online, free from the pressure of anyone else's expectations. One evening, I sat on my balcony with a glass of wine, looking out at the city. I felt a smile spread across my face. Life hadn't gone the way I once imagined, but maybe, just maybe, it turned out exactly the way it was meant to. I was Emma again, food critic,
Author.
and most importantly, in charge of my own life.